Okay, all right. See you guys later. Thank you again. Thank you so much. Did you wanna, I'm about to start again, so did you wanna do a quick commercial real quick? I got to record it. Did you wanna let everybody know where they can find you? 30 seconds. Come on, or you are NL. I already got to record this. Yo. You know NL, right? Okay, I got something. Thank you, John.
Good. Every time you see me, good or bad, I'm glad. Ain't got to
All right. Did you want to get you something to eat first, or okay? Okay, yes, ma'am. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm just kind of trying to bring us all back in just a little bit. I know everybody's eating. I know we kind of had that slight break. I hope you all were as moved by those young people as I was. The cool thing is I get to see these young people every day and see them grow every day and see them grow with John and see them grow with Emmanuel and see them grow with Miss Sarita. So, you know, I get that blessing every day, but we definitely want to allow you guys to hear some of the conversations that they're having, some of the things that's on their mind, some of the things that's on their heart, and especially as they said before, our leaders. And Johnny kind of talked about it before. We don't always know who our leaders are, and we don't always know as leaders who we need to really talk to who's doing some things in the community. So I just want to, thank our young people. But I know everybody, just kind of, I assume because, it is real quiet right now, everybody enjoyed the food, correct? Yeah. So I wanted to give the chef and the owner, the idealist, Lincoln Heights, born and raised, Jaleesa Jenkins, this opportunity to talk about her business, just, what it is that they do, where you can find them, and more opportunities if you want more of this delicious meals, where you can find her and allow them to service you. So come on up, Ms. Jenkins. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jaleesa. I'm a longtime resident of Lincoln Heights. My family's from here. I started my business here. I had the store over at Fancy's. We had a restaurant out of there for a while. It kind of precipitated, and I started to focus on seasoning. So I have 4 different seasons, blends. We specialize on low sodium and salt-free seasonings. We are being sold at both Jungle Gems, the Country Fresh Market in Hartwell, and the Sure Fine grocery store in St. Bernard. So you can find all our seasonings there. We also do caterings and pop-up shops, different things like that. We have a website. You can visit us and order seasoning there, royaltyeatery.com, and follow us on all social media. Thank you.
So once again, and why I always love them, a black love couple, right? Husband, wife, they bring their kid here every day. So it's just what Lincoln Heights represents, family, unity, and that's how we can find opportunities to help each other out. But while we're all here today, besides the food, is once again, is to truly have a real conversation. And once again, I was just out there, I try not to call people out, but they was like, hey, even as an adult, we don't even always know what some of the questions are, right? If you're not truly involved in the politics on the day-to-day, sometimes you don't even know what conversation to have. So it's good to hear even from our perspectives, these are some of the things that we're doing and how you can get involved in some of the things that we're doing. So just kind of wanted to start it off, just really once again, I wanted to make sure everybody knew what we're doing here at the Heights Movement, just kind of who we are and what our main purposes are, right? And just kind of go over just some quick programming things that what we have going on. So on Mondays, starting the second week of March, we have what we call Money Mondays. We have 4 main pillars that we kind of hit upon, and maybe I should start there first before I get into our services. So our 4 main pillars are education and skill development. We also have beautification and social justice. We have economic empowerment. And then lastly, our public health and wellness. So when you get into Money Mondays, that's really dealing with our economic empowerment. We felt like our residents not only had the inspirations of being economically empowered, but we want to provide them the tools to be economically empowered. We want a lot of things, but we don't always know how to get those things. So it's always cool when you hear from somebody that looks like you, that also come from your community, that kind of can help you with those things. So Brother Lawrence Kane will be producing those Money Mondays classes out of Abundance University. He has a book called Money Seeds. So once again, you go to our website to get those things signed up. On Tuesday, I bet you as soon as I say this, she's going to walk in, because my wife was supposed to walk in about 20 minutes ago, and usually when I bring her up, she walks in. That's not my wife, but that is my guy right there, though. That is my man's the boat. But on Tuesdays, my wife, she does yoga on Tuesdays. That's a part of our public wellness sourcing of it, right? Just really holistic wellness. Wednesdays, we do Wellness Wednesdays. We're already partnering with an organization right now. I believe some of you all got some flyers on. Miss Williams was passing these out as well, too. But on Wellness Wednesdays, once again, we're focusing on holistic health, how you can eat better, how we can cook better, how we as adults can find better opportunities, whether it's reading food labels to continue to just move better. On Thursdays, it's my favorite. We're doing video editing and electronic storytelling. So if you want a podcast, if you want to know a young person that's really into music and recording studios, the Easily Blessed Multimedia Room, which is right behind all of our beautiful pictures here, that's where that takes place. Friday, we have creative writing. Saturday, I believe I saw Miss Twitty here, Miss Amber, I believe I saw, yeah. So Saturdays is when we have our urban farming. So we get out on our Jackson Street Produce Market, where Central State has been a great partner with us. So we're looking to continue that partnership and providing urban farming for all of our residents here in the village of Lincoln Heights through the Jackson Street Produce Market. And then also we have our after-school tutoring. We have our community meeting space as well. And then Johnny also talked about his great program that he's once again, this was his brainchild, From Boys to Men, where he's really talking about young men who have lost their fathers at an early age and how they can now build their own community, how they can empower themselves. And that's what the Heights movement is really about, just allowing you to have what problems do you see? And how can we empower you to solve those problems? And that's what I think all of us got into politics for in the first place, right? To hear the problems of the people that we know and how can we empower them to solve those problems. So I know I had a chance to just kind of just go over real quick what we're doing. I want to allow everybody at the table to just kind of, if we can keep it under 2 minutes, that'd be perfect. Just to hit any high level things that we have going on. So if anybody has any questions on that front, we can start from there. And if not, we can just go further into discussions.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Gwen. Hi, thank you. Please excuse my tardiness. I had the time wrong in my calendar, and I just follow my calendar. I get up and I do what my calendar says. So, but what I'd like to say is, yeah, thanks for inviting me. And, we are in the sheriff's office, really striving to work with and work for the community. I mean, this is something that I talked about from the beginning. Obviously, Major Jackie Reed's here. She's a huge part of what that plan was and is. And, some of the things that we've been doing, we're working on Supersedes. I don't know if you all are familiar with that program, but it's a great program for at-risk youth. And when I say at risk, these are kids that are getting ready to get expelled from school, right? And Candace Tolbert, if any of you know her, she built that program from the ground up. It is absolutely stunning and fabulous what she's done, but we provide the tour for the kids in the jail, all right? And that's a moment for them to understand what happens when you make bad choices, and how you can move away from that. And, they actually get to interview with a panel of hand-selected people that are incarcerated, men for the boys and women for the girls. There you go. And, it's made a huge impact. And Major Reed's been on the ground level getting these kids in. They relate to her. She's been fantastic in that regard. And, it really is building. I mean, we started out, once a month, once every other month? 3 times a month. We're going to be bringing those different groups of kids in so that they can understand. And then, and that's a small part of their day. And I got to tell you, we don't just show them the jail. We take them to specific spots just so they understand the idea of how uncomfortable it can be. And then they go through the interview process and so forth. And, we've also been outreaching with lots of different communities. Major Reed has, she's in charge of a food delivery. We do food delivery 3 times a week with our sheriff's truck, our sheriff's personnel. We go to the free store food bank, pick it up, take it to these communities that need it. You know, and the other thing is, and I'll just keep this short, you know, I'm focused on, and I always have been, on improving the conditions of that jail, honestly. You know, improving the medical conditions, the food, all of the things that happen when you're incarcerated, because, you know, people come into our system and they're struggling and they're broken in some ways. My goal is when they get released, because they do, is when they get released, they are more whole than they were when they got to us, not the other way around, okay? And that's what we work on daily. I mean, it is absolutely a conversation we have every day.
Just real quick now,
Absolutely.
Because I don't know if Celeste, if she's not going to stop me, then I'm going to say it until she stops me. If y'all know Celeste. Yeah, so, but no, because what Ms. Charmaine just hit up on is just, you know, when people are, you know, released back into, you know, society, what is that kind of that liaison? What's that pathway, right? We want to kind of help too within our garden, right? We've been working with the team in Cleveland, specifically in our garden. We're going to actually call it Field of Dreams. So what that entitles now, if you're in the halfway house, obviously you need certain volunteer hours. So you come in, you have to work your certain volunteer hours within that garden. But now what they're doing in Cleveland is you're realizing that, hey, if I'm sitting here and I'm growing X amount of tomatoes, if I'm growing X amount of cucumbers, you know, that's a market for that. And now they're finding opportunities to now get themselves back into the workforce. So hopefully those are opportunities that we can work together upon moving forward. So that just really sparked an idea. Celeste did not stop me, so I'm cool. So I'm not going to get in trouble. Yes. I'm sorry, Miss Amber. Miss Amber, you got to get, yep.
You need to change the term. I keep telling you that.
I didn't say garden. I didn't say farm. I didn't say garden. I didn't say garden. I said farm.
Oh, okay. I'll make sure.
You are correct. No, you are correct.
And I just want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Derek?
It's Durant. So
I thought it was Durant. So thank you for correcting that. Thank you. My name is Gwen McFarland, and I've already introduced myself. And I want to share with you briefly. My background it began as in healthcare administration. And in healthcare administration, I got my degrees there, and I focused on healthcare in the community, not in the hospital, even though I had hospital jobs. My job was always to look at what we can do in healthcare. And healthcare does not just mean physical healthcare, it means social, mental, and all of those things that make us whole as an individual to keep us healthy. So involved more in politics when I saw that those needs weren't being met for those of us who were underserved, uninsured, or just had no support whatsoever. So one of my jobs that I was responsible for working and putting together a women's program for women who were addicted. And at that time, it was addicted to cocaine. And I worked with a judge called Judge Nadine Allen, where we put together the thought that it's treatment, not incarceration. And that's the way I have felt all of my life. And it's really important from not only then, but also today. So when I decided to run as an elected official, I knew that there were 3 barriers I had against me, especially in the community where I initially ran. And that was, I looked like you all. I was a Democrat, and I was not a Republican. I was a female, so I had 3 strikes against me. And I overcame all of those 3 strikes to be where I am today. I've always felt, and I say this over and over again, just because you're not sitting at the table, it doesn't mean you can't bring your folding chair and put yourself right there and then learn and move up from there. So my whole goal has always been to embrace the community, to teach everybody how to be clients and not patients, and also to do the best that you can do wherever you are. So today I'm in charge of the Democratic Party and also the Board of Election. My goal has always been to recruit, to educate the young men and women to learn how to become involved in the political system. And my biggest acclimate, and I'm so proud of this, is the youngest person we ever had in our Democratic Club in North Central Dems, which includes Lincoln Heights. Thank you, Laverne. Laverne has always been a part of that group, and I love her so much because her vision is like mine. What we found, we had a young man come in, and I kept telling him, I said, I am so impressed with you. You've got so much going on. He was in college. He said, no, I don't know what I want to do. So to make a long story short, when he graduated from college, I said, you need to run for office. He says, I don't know about that. Miss Gwen, just give me a chance. I said, you need to run for office. So he finally decided he was going to run for office. We circulated his petitions so he could get all the signatures on there. He is now the youngest African-American mayor in Forest Park that they've ever had. So there is hope. There is hope, okay? And his name is Aaron Brown. So again, it doesn't matter where you are, and now I'm trying to, he's running again this year, and my grandson that I told you I'm trying to recruit, well, I'm gonna have him volunteering on his campaign so he can see there's hope and there's opportunities.
Am I answering a question or what? Oh. Look, I want to get to some of their questions because we're here and, you know, talking heads, we talk all the time. I get tired of talking and y'all get tired of listening too, you just don't want to say it. I see them staring at my pudding. Stop looking at my pudding. Oh, that's right. We're on TV now. But the reality is first of all, thank you very much for inviting us to here. I'm glad to be here. I know it took a lot of people who put it together, but I appreciate having the opportunity to be here, and not just because you're in my Senate district, but because Lincoln Heights is my stomping ground. From the upper sub to the lower sub, I know all about it. You can't tell me nothing. I remember when there was a penny candy store over on Lachlan Road, and y'all don't even know what Lachlan Road is because everything else is built up over there now. When Moxley's and all of those were open still, and they are not open now, and there was a penny candy, and when Bird Street Baptist, Lincoln Heights Baptist was Bird Street Baptist to me, because it was on Bird Street. So when I look and see over the years what it become and why it was built, I look at what happens from when somebody said earlier today, I heard him saying, well, politics, I don't care. The reality is all of that stuff impacts you on a day-to-day basis. And so whether I heard you say, Durance, I think, talking about potholes, all of those things come from who makes the decision about how you spend the money. And more than likely, those are people who are in elected offices who have other people who work in those administrative offices making those decisions. Your school board and what your students are learning and what they're not learning. Those are things that school board members are elected also. Sometimes you forget. But those people have to campaign too and are voted, as I see Dr. Moffitt, who is here from Cincinnati Public. The reality is that we've got a lot to do, and I appreciate being here because I hear the collaboration going on. I hear the partnerships. I hear a lot of the urban farming. We talked about farming. As a matter of fact, I gave up a grant a couple of years ago. I was still in the House because nobody wanted to handle it. We're talking millions of dollars, and the need is in the state, and somebody decided that they didn't want to go for the grant because they didn't know who should handle it. So these are all things that when I hear your collaboration and the work that actually is going on, as a matter of fact, Dr. Thomas, Jack Thomas, the president of Central State, was just in my office last week. We were talking about this very thing, the whole connection. And so we need to make sure at the state level, when we're looking at our budget, we're going through our budget right now. It's over in the House. And by the time they finish doing what they have to do with it through that process, they'll send it to us in the Senate, and then we'll go through it and see if there's some things we want to keep, some things we want to change. And so there's a whole process. It has to be done by June 30th. So if there are some things in there that you know that you need, say, for instance, there will be additional dollars, the H2 Ohio. Does that impact the urban farming at all? The ag person is brand new. The director of the ag is brand new. He used to be a representative, Baldridge, and he's going to be that person. So the point is that you think you're not involved with politics. It's not just about us, the talking heads that are there in Columbus, or the folks who are in the in D.C. Greg Landsman's and those folks, because you're in Greg's district, I think. Okay. So you need to be saying back to us, here's what we need. When we start talking about the Constitution and what the United States of America is all about, it's the Constitution said, what? For the people, by the people. And we have to hold them to that. You have to hold me to that. So it's not about me making decisions about me. It's like me figuring out what happened to Lincoln Heights money when the share of it all went to somewhere else, when we started talking about taxes and how we collect and how those things are distributed in the county. So hopefully, I mean, I know that they're trying to work on those things, but you have to stay on them about it because it's yours. It's just like the land grant money that Central State wasn't getting for years. Huh? They've been a land grant institution since 1890. They weren't getting any money. The state didn't want to pay them their share. Guess who else is a land grant institution?
Ohio State University.
The Ohio State University. But they got their money. Okay, I'm going to stop.
Are we going for questions?
No, yeah, we are going to questions, Celeste. No, so that's perfect. That's a perfect segue. And it's just, I want to make sure, because I heard three major things. One, when it comes to who polices us in those relationships, despite how, I shouldn't say despite, because that's not the right word. Our feelings are valid. How you feel is valid. But you're hearing from leadership that they're hearing your feelings and they want to make a change. So if they're saying that, the same way we would do anybody else in our community, oh, you said something? I'm going to hold you accountable to it. But here they're saying that. You have the leader of the Democratic Party saying that it's not just about national elections. It's about what you guys want. And then you're hearing from your state senator that's sitting here telling you, tell me what you want. Where do you want this money to go? It is your money. When else would you give anybody else $10 and you're not going to go down there and chase it and wonder where those $10 went? But now you're wondering more. These are millions and millions of dollars. That is your money. So right now, these are the opportunities to ask these questions about anything that you would like to ask right now. So if anybody does have a question, yes, please just step up to the mic. And Celeste, and then Les, take the next one. Take the next one, Lester, right by Johnny.
Yeah, you got it.
And then Johnny, can you moderate the back for me, just the questions?
Here's the thing. So we would like $6 million from the ARPA budget to finalize the gun range project. That's number one request. The other question I have is, what is the process of getting capital dollars for infrastructure projects? Because I know each pretty much city gets capital dollars to fund different projects, and I know that a lot of times minority projects are not in that process, and there's a certain group that gives recommendations. So what is that actual process?
Let's do that first. Just so happened that Lincoln Heights got $675,000 in the last capital budget for the park and some of that. So a lot of times when you hear folks taking credit for doing some of this stuff, those dollars came down from the state. Now, as far as a gun range move, what you have to tie that to is that whole development that's going on. There are monies that are already there. Now, when you start talking about divvying up the ARPA money, yeah, and unfortunately, we've been sitting on it, but the county's been sitting on it too, and so it's municipalities, we need to make sure that they're using those dollars as they were intended. And that's another thing that we're working to do, is to make sure that when we talk about infrastructure, when I'm talking about Lincoln Heights, I want to make sure that the county has that in their head too, so that when the money comes down to them, they don't just go, it's like, what happened to the money? Well, they decided to spend it elsewhere. The capital budget piece, you should start working on that now. If you know that there is a project, it's going to be shovel ready. No, not pie in the sky. It has to be there, and you have to have. Now, since you did get dollars in the last capital budget, you have the process. You should know what the process is. I suggest you check with that and start whatever project you want to put in for the next one, because you know the capital budget, this year we're doing the general revenue fund, and next year will be the capital budget. We'll do that. It has to be in by July next year. But you need to start on that now. It's just like, honestly, whatever's going into this budget, unless there's some amendments and people raise enough hell, they already got their minds made up about what's going to be in there, and you need to be looking at that. The sad part about it, it's 1,000 pages. So when you do that, you have to segment it off and say, okay, what's most important? If there are some issues with lead and lead abatement, you know that you need those dollars, there's dollars in the budget. What you need to do then is track it and say, hey, how does Lincoln Heights get their part? So those are the things, too, that you need to be making sure you pay attention to. But I'll make sure I get you that. Here in Hamilton County, we have a weird kind of process. The Cincinnati Business Committee, along with the Chamber of Commerce, and I think Eric Kearney from the African American Chamber is also on that committee. So they go through that. They do the vetting. But like I told them, I want to see who got vetted and who got excluded. Because then that way, even though they are doing that groundwork and we're there sometimes watching the process, we want to make sure that we're not just arbitrarily excluding people. Gwen Robinson tried to get that corner of Reading and Langdon Farm done for years, where that filling station was, and now there's big rocks there. And they never got an opportunity because they never let them know what the process was. So we also want to make sure that you do that. And you can always call any of our offices. Cedric Denson, Representative Cedric Denson, who is not here right now. Unfortunately, he got tied up. Okay, I'm glad that he said something to you, because he would have at least been another male up here, and you wouldn't be here by yourself, and he would have been talking too. But you can get to any of our offices and say, how's the process? When does it start? And of course, Chandra, you know too how that works. So the United Way and all those other, and Dolores, my buddy, my friend.
I was just going to say that the health center down there down on Stephens and the one in Mount Healthy, much of the funds that came to build those two facilities came from the state capital budget, and so it is a process, and it's a long process. But you have to stay focused, and it clearly, if you are seeking funds from the state, you have to have shovel ready, because you will be overlooked.
Yes, ma'am. I think we're going to go, John, and then after that, John, just keep everybody going. So, John Harris.
So, my name is John Harris. A lot of people call me Johnny. Only one person calls me Five. So, my question is, as I stated earlier about the police and the disconnect between us and black people, my question is, are there any projects being made to build relationships between the community and Hamilton County Sheriff?
Absolutely, and it's a great question. We are working, as I talked about, that program of Supersedes. There are offshoots of that program that are for the youth who are coming to classrooms, and they're coming to jail programs. We're bringing all manner of equipment and our different deputies. Like, we don't have just the same guys and women coming each time. We mix it up so that when these young people come in, they can come into our institution or come into the classrooms where we go, and we tell our life stories, and we encourage kids and so forth. And a lot of our deputies, I got to tell you, some of them have had hardships, and they've worked through that, and they share those personal stories and so forth and encourage those kids. And so we're doing that. And, the main thing, too, is just like y'all said, we're keeping our eye on the ball. When things happen, when there's a complaint, when something isn't done correctly or done inappropriately, we get on that and we address it, And it is addressed. We're not trying to just sweep anything under the rug. When I came on, there was a deputy who actually, he was a member of the Proud Boys, all right? And he had been allowed to serve in our department for a number of years under the prior sheriff, who knew those situations with that gentleman. And we I'm telling you, I wasn't there not even 2 or 3 weeks, and I fired him. And I had every right to do so.
One of the things we want to do, if you take a look at the governor's budget, the governor likes doing things that we get seen for, that are really good things, but you have to follow the money. So one of the things that's there is millions of dollars are being put into the line for police officer reform and training and those kinds of things. And I have a program that I tried, a bill that I tried to put through 2 years ago. It's the emotional intelligence quotient, so that these officers, who unfortunately some of them need all of that because they're committing suicide, there's lots of things going on in their lives. You have to remember, they go home too, and if the wife left them for the butcher, then he gonna come out and come and take it out on you the next day. Life happens to them too, but that emotional intelligence quotient would be allowed to look at them, and those sending officers from the morning would be able to say, you know what, let's talk about it, or you have an issue, or there's a hotline that you could, so nobody was afraid. So that's what I'm trying to get to get that in the governor's budget instead of him just being able to talk about how much money you spent. Because until you follow the money.
Just because you want camera, yeah, just for the camera.
We have the wellness program. We just developed it, and what we did was we got a rabbi to come in, and he's developed a program with one of the officers whose husband has passed away. She has done tremendously, a great job. What she's doing now is, instead of that taboo that we don't have problems, because we're human, right? And if you go in and see something that's distracting, like a body strolled across the road, little things that people normally don't see in their daily lives. You take that home, and you got domestics, you got your wife taking the kids away, you got child support court, you got a lot of stuff going on in your lives that a lot of people really don't think happens to police officers, but it does. So now we have a program, it's called the Wellness, and administration don't have to know anything about it. It's online for the officer. The person go in their phone and say, I need help. I need help. You know, financially, mentally, spiritually, I need some help. Because we all think it's taboo to admit that we have faults. We do. We were brought up that way. You got to be strong. You got to be strong. That's all you're told. But it's not always that way. And if you have kids, you're worried about them. So it's a lot of stress, and you're going to work with stress. And stress causes more stress. So a lot of times, I mean, I can only speak from my point of view, being an officer and also working inside the jail, which I did for 33 years. I walked those halls. I talked to billions of people, okay? I wasn't always the major. I came in as an officer, and I did a lot of time on one-on-one talking to people. You gotta start looking at the people incarcerated as people, because there is something that has driven them to the point that they're at right now. The same goes for us. So until we start realizing that it's no shame to say that I have problems, you got to be able to admit it to yourself, and then you got to go get some help without everybody knowing your business. So that's one of the things that we got as wellness. It's not being weak, it's being smart, because you know you're at the point to where you're ready to snap. Everybody gets that feeling sometime. So that's all I have to say.
I would just like to also share, I don't know if we have this in Lincoln Heights or not, but one of the things that I created in Springfield Township was a Springfield Township Community Task Force. And that task force consisted of our police department, our sheriff's department, our educators, our school, our faith-based leaders, and Hillcrest. And I don't know if many of you all know about Hillcrest. Many of you do. I see you're shaking your heads, yes. And that coalition, because just like in Lincoln Heights, in Springfield Township, we have a real blending of faith-based churches and synagogues in our township. So I put together the task force. We set it up and we met. We met monthly for about 6 months, and then quarterly, and now we meet once a year. It's still active. So it's important, if you have not created such a task force, do that here, because the information that you're receiving tonight, especially from the Sheriff's Department, is just so profound. And it shows that they're not just talking the talk, but they're walking it as well. And so actions speak louder than words, okay? So they are not having like broken promises, they're making promises and they're keeping that promise. So if you haven't created a task force, it has helped our community a lot. And one of the things that helped the most is we had some of our, one faith-based leader who did not trust the police, didn't trust the sheriff. He came from down south. He'd seen all the things happen to his family that none of us probably in this room has seen happen. And it took a while for him to gather the trust and the faith with our police department. But now he is a strong supporter, and he goes out in the community. He goes into the Justice Center working with some of his people to help educate, and into the school systems as well. So I'm just encouraging you to look at opportunities like that, because, you know, everywhere you may feel there are obstacles, there are more opportunities. We just have to do that.
Ms. Roberta? I think Ms. Roberta, yes, ma'am.
I have 2 questions for you, Durance, and Ms. Charmaine. Durance, you spoke
I'm not
about
on the panel. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
You talked about the programs that you have here at the Heights Movement. What are the times on each day that those programs are?
Yes, ma'am. So each one, and right now, the reason I did not put the times on there just because a couple of them were just finalizing, but I can definitely let you know for sure. Mondays take place from 6 to 7 on Mondays. Yoga is from 7 to 8, and like I said, my wife is here, so she can vouch for that one. Wellness Wednesday is the one that we're just kind of just orchestrating a little bit, but it's probably going to be a 6:30 to 7:30 or 7 to 8 kind of time frame for Wellness Wednesdays. Thursdays is mine. That's from 7 to 8, and actually we're partnering with St. Monica's. And once again, so we're partnering with St. Monica's, where we'll actually extend those hours all the way up to 10:30, specifically for the teens at St. Monica's. So it's going to be like a Thursday teen night here, but the actual education piece will be from 7 to 8. Fridays is going to be a 7 to 8 as well. Saturday, urban farming, we start from 10. We go from 10 to 12. I get there about 8 o'clock in the morning if anybody wants to come up there and get early work in the garden. But 10 to 12, after school tutoring, 4 to 6. And then Monday through Friday with Fun Friday. They do a great job with Fun Friday and our community meeting space. If you ever need the community meeting space, just talk to Miss Aretha Brown, and she'll take care of you. And then I know Johnny is working on his program as well too. So
Miss Aretha Brown.
And Ms. Charmaine, you talked about a program that you guys have at the jailhouse where the kids can come in and do a tour and go to classes. How do we register the kids and stuff, or how often can you?
So Major Reed has the information on that, and what do we want to?
Well, we the way that we're doing it now, we are at the beginning of the month. We're doing the girls, and towards the end of the month, we're doing the young men. We go through Candace Tolbert at Super Seeds. She's right here on Woodline across from the fire department. And if you call Super Seeds, it's at llc.org, you should be able to contact her. She gives us the names and how many students and people that she's bringing in for the kids, and she will make sure that the parents drop them off at the Woodline facility, and she buses them downtown. And then another thing that they do is we work with UC Hospital. They actually go up to UC, they talk to the physicians, they talk to people who are injured, like gun victims and people who are injured seriously from some fault of someone else, okay? So they get that communication. And then the next day, she has them write out. They have like a homework assignment, and they write out what they learned that day. The next day, they go to UC with the professors. Well, this year we'll be using Cincinnati State. We used UC last year, but this college now is Cincinnati State, and they go and spend the whole day up there as a student. Cincinnati State, she has a connection there that will help our youth get college credits before they graduate. And so when they come out, they even have people up there who know how to get the fees and everything else paid for these kids, the tuition. And so it's a big collaboration that is working very quietly, and I can thank the sheriff. The sheriff brought her to me about 8 to 10 years ago. They met, and the sheriff brought her into the jail, and I've been working with her ever since.
Okay.
We'll get that information.
We'll get that.
Okay.
Put it up.
Yep.
And maybe the council can put it on their website so that you folks will have that link to be able to get there. Maybe not have to go to too many places and one person get one info and the other one doesn't. So I'm certain that the council will be willing to do that, won't y'all?
Hey.
The sheriff department does have their own website in which they do have stuff about Lincoln Heights on it too. So there'll be 2 websites that they can do.
You make the link too. So we do have.
You go ahead, I'll wait.
Yeah, go ahead, Lester.
She can go. I'll wait.
Yeah, because my feet hurt. I'm tired.
Go ahead, Ms. Aretha.
My question is for, I guess, everybody that maybe can answer the question, but maybe for our sheriffs here. I understand we have a lot of things set up for our children to learn, not to make bad choices. But what do we have for our sheriffs to learn? Shouldn't they come and learn us? Because I had an incident last year at Halloween where we had a great Halloween trunk or treat. And somebody called the police. Long story short, 5 of them came up. Each individual in a different car. I felt like that was an intimidation tactic. Needless to say, y'all see I'm not scared. I checked them out, and I told them, if y'all had a question or anything, come and have a hot dog with us. Come and get to know us. Trunk or treat. Get to know our babies. Because when you build a relationship, you have a relationship. But when you come and you looking at this Lincoln Heights with this angle in your eye,
right.
That's how you deal with us. And we're not bad people. We're not We're not bad people, and that's how they deal with us. I just seen a young man get stripped down all the way to the soles of his shoes yesterday. They didn't find one thing in that car, and they did nothing but humiliate that young man. Why? What do we have in place for them to learn and understand us? Because just like y'all want to understand that things happen in y'all home, things happen in our home. And y'all come, people come, not y'all particularly, but the police come and they are igniters instead of decelerators. They make it bigger than it has to be. So what do we have in place for our police that's policing Lincoln Heights to get to know us, to learn us, and not handle us like we are banshees, like we are crazy people, because we're not. We're loving, we're caring, and we're people, and we deserve to be treated like that. But if you don't know a person and they're kind in the way they've been brought up, you don't know how to address them. So what do y'all have in place for them to learn us?
And that is a great, and thank you for that question, and my apologies for the situation that occurred here, that our deputies apparently did not handle appropriately. Certainly what I want you to first of all know is there are avenues to bring these things to our attention, okay? And, we do have, you can get on our website. Our website is very easy to navigate now. You can get on there, and there are spaces for you to log in and actually say, I have a compliment or I have a complaint, and put that on there. And I promise you that we will follow up on that. That's what it's designed for. We'll follow up with the deputies and find out, hey, guys, what happened? But to answer your question as well, we do have a program called ABLE, and that's this pin I'm wearing right here. We're sending our officers through it. It's an 8-hour program, and it's a program that is it's designed to do just what you said, make our officers sensitive to the fact that they have to de-escalate, to the fact that, look, if your partner's not de-escalating, it's your responsibility to de-escalate, okay? And that's exactly why I say, bring it to our attention, because these guys are trained, and there's no excuse to say, oh, I didn't know, I wasn't trained about that. I've brought intentional diversity to our command staff and to our department, and I continue to do that just for that reason, so that, the conversation at the table is changed. It's different when people of diverse backgrounds have an actual voice. And I don't just say, hey, sit at the table. I want their input, and we do the things that are suggested. So I do appreciate that, and, please do have a conversation with us about that.
Okay.
If that's going on, I absolutely want to talk about that.
And I just want to say, the task force that I described, your council members can set that up if it isn't already set up. Because I'm going to throw it back to Laverne them, okay? And to you all, because I set it up, and I set it up so everybody could hear exactly what you said. All the educators in the school system, the people at Hillcrest, the faith-based community, all of those partners, they all partnership. And it was so amazing because it took a few months for everybody to understand and to digest deeply what was being said, what had been endured, even all the way back to history.
Yes, ma'am.
And they listened and they learned. And the Springfield Township Police Department is one of the most diverse police departments in the county. And the task force really did a lot. A lot of it was the faith-based community folks that helped everybody. But just to hear your voice was the intent of formulating that task force.
Yes, ma'am.
We wanted, and you wanted, people to be treated with respect. We did not want any rioting in our community. We didn't want any disrespect. And that task force was the healing force that made it happen.
Okay, no, I want you to move. You'll see in a minute.
And I just wanted to speak to because I'm sorry, Amber, because I'll forget this 1 second, because I wanted to speak to that, both Charmaine Major Reed as well, because I know when the COPS grant came in a couple years ago, specifically, there were some things I know from council we asked upon, right? More diversity, definitely more engagement from our officers. We had a council meeting just a couple, maybe it was our last council meeting. We kind of talked about that as well too, where at the beginning you definitely saw a lot more engagement, whether it was our the Harlem Globetrotters game, or if you just really just talk about me personally, like you said, Officer Brandy, who would always come out to the garden, or the gentleman that would play basketball. We are definitely seeing a decline in that, and I think that's what Ms. Sarita is really talking about. It's not necessarily a class, because you can't learn this in a class. You can't learn Ms. Sarita in a class. You can't learn Johnny, you can't learn Jason, you can't learn Miss Roberta, you can't learn Lester in a class. So I think you touched upon it too, even from a council perspective. Because we at council, we move cordially, and we move collectively, but we also move at our own pace. The pace of police relations in our community needs to be expedited, and I think you said it properly, faith-based organization, but beyond faith-based organizations, community-led organizations.
Yes. That's right.
And that's what the high school is a community-led organization. And that's what put this on together. So I think even us as politicians, we need to think of other avenues of how we need to deliver our message and who our delivering messengers are. And it can't always be our elected officials. It's got to be the people that's going to organize the elected officials like the Miss Saritas of the world. So I definitely think that any task force, any program that you guys are mentioning tonight, please take it to Miss Sarita and please work with the team back there to make that happen in our community, because there is no excuse at this point. We're live now, so we got to make sure we get this done immediately. I'm sorry, Miss Amber, you have the floor.
Okay, so for those who don't know me, my dad used to be police chief out here, Ron Twitty, and growing up in a Oh, you got to raise it. Oh, I got heels on today. I feel tall. And one thing that I want to say, growing up in a home like that, one thing that my dad did, to your point, is called community-oriented policing. So he was out here beyond hours. As many days I brought him food because he was still out here, right? And that was because he was going to events. You have to be visible. You have to be personable. It's good that they have training. They need that training because that holds them accountable on the discipline side and how they operate. But first and foremost, it has to be people. And they have to come out here and work with the resident, right, on a consistent basis. That's why I was talking about my dad as an example.
Not for the next month or two, but
No,
for the
no,
next 5 years.
It's got to be the culture to come out here on a regular basis. Number two, for you, I'm glad that you spoke up, but you are the driver. You don't wait on what they have together, right? They don't live out here. This is your community. You have ownership. You tell them what you want and what it needs to look like.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's all I wanted to say.
Young Lester, the floor is yours, young Lester. Oh, I'm sorry.
How do I get to know you as an officer? They keep
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lester Parker. I just have a question for the entire panel. How can we get more funding and training to make our schools and classrooms safer?
Well, I'm going to say that, honestly, we've been doing that for a while. We do have emergency plans in place, and so beyond what you see on TV sometimes, and what was it, Baldi, and that situation would never have happened here, I believe, as far as what I know and what we've put in place over a period of time. And I was on the school board for a period of time. Now, as far as when you talk about safe, nobody should be able to get in that building. And everybody has to be held accountable for what happens. No back doors left open if a door doesn't lock. And somebody has to go around every day and check it. That's what those custodial people do. And they should be checking, make sure, no, there isn't a lock broken or there isn't another way for somebody to get in. And we're making sure. Now, we're not going to be, what's his name, lean on me with the bat.
Joe Clark. Go away. They here.
We not going to Joe Clark you, but there has to be a way that we have it from both sides, that the students understand too. You're not opening that door. I don't care if it's your buddy trying to get in.
Don't open it.
We have to make sure that you're being safe too. You don't mind getting your book bag checked. Unfortunately, I just heard a story the other day where they're finding more guns. People, they're bringing them just because they can. They got one at home. They found it. Look, what does a 6-year-old have any business with a gun, period? The parents. It ought to be a law to hold them responsible. There was a bill that was out last General Assembly, and our friends said, no, we don't want to have that. That's infringing upon the Second Amendment. And it's just not true. You have to, if you got a gun, lock it up. You don't lock it up, then you're responsible. It's like the insurance company. If you don't have your seatbelt on, when you wreck and get ejected from the car, oh well, we'll pay most of it, but we won't pay all of it because you should have had your seatbelt on. Same thing with if you use a gun that has a serial number, the serial number may have been filed off. If you don't report your gun had been stolen, I'm going to hold you accountable too. Those are bills that have been introduced and they've been poo-pooed because of the Second Amendment rights. So there's lots of things, and I want you to do, just like I told that other young lady about voting, I want you to go to your principal and say, what does our emergency plan look like? Because I know you guys have drills.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we do.
You do have drills, yes. And that's important for you to do. But if you want to know more about how those drills tie into the emergency planning, then you can ask. And they'll be more than happy to tell you, I'm sure. But we've got to do a better job of keeping those guns out of those kids' hands. It's okay to have to go through the screener for games and things like that. The game where the kids fought at Taft and Woodward, when they say, oh, when somebody got shot at, they did not get shot in that school. Because they have to go through the screeners before they get into those buildings. And so it's important for us to do. Lock the doors. I should have to buzz you in. And if you're not being buzzed in, now this is happening all over the country. But in many, there are dollars that are there, safety dollars. Here again, follow the money. I don't want somebody to just have a program where they're training teachers how to use the guns. I'm sorry.
I don't believe teachers should have those.
Okay, sorry. Here, go ahead.
Okay, Les, I'm just actually curious. Where do you not feel like how do you specifically not
Facts.
feel safe in the school? I'm just curious.
Now I feel safe in the school. I feel safe in the school because I know my school. I know my building. I go to Princeton. So I wasn't just speaking from my perspective. I have friends that go to other schools and they tell me how they feel. So I'm voicing it because we have legislators here to address it.
And I just want to say, Lester, your question is so apropos. When I spoke about that community task force, we had students from the school representing the school. We listened to their voice. It's very important that everybody is engaged in that particular type of community task force. So there's great representation.
And this last thing then, Knox, see if you got a point on that, definitely. And then lastly, Lester, I would just say from a resources standpoint, same way, right? I'm going to speak to you as a community organizer. Find ways to get involved, find ways to get in organizations like us where you can join the community roundtables, right? Where you can speak with folks that on the ground can provide funding for specific programming, right? So those are also type of ways that I would say on the ground level. Get in tune with us, get in tune with Mr. Reed, get in tune with Johnny, Emmanuel, and I'll figure out how can we open up doors to you to open up different avenues for resources as well. Something you want to say, Steve?
How you doing? Nah, never turn your back to the panel. So my question is this, right? As we talked about, right, understanding just the everyday struggle of police, I think, and I'm grateful for all the progress that we've made in terms of the gun range and getting rid of it and the conversations being had. But we have not had an intentional conversation in terms of legislators about intergenerational trauma. The fact that you're talking about 80-year-olds who will for the first time go a week without gunfire. Like, what does that mean, right? And how has that impacted us, even as we talk about in the schools, right? That was never a calculus for discipline. The gun range wasn't. So we just watched our friends go through a buzzsaw, right? That has to be corrected, right? There's trauma with the institutions that sat quiet over the years while we were dealing with what we were dealing with, and that part of our humanity was never even recognized, right? So we have to have a real and intentional conversation about what does healing look like, where do the dollars lie, if there's dollars for emotional stress, PTSD, how are we extending those dollars and access to those resources into a community that, frankly, none of us have ever dealt with it, right? Not fully and truly. We operate in spite of it, right? So how do we be more intentional, or how can we expand more of a net? Well, that's what I say, right? There's never been a continuum of care imagined for the residents of Lincoln Heights. So how are we going to be intentional as elected officials to ensure that that gets established? Because it's the same thing that every other community has.
Are you on the council?
That's pretty much it.
Man, I forgot about it. I didn't even notice.
I know somebody else has a question, but you raise a good point. And there was a bill to try and get trauma as an emergency, a crisis here in Ohio, and of course it's all kinds of trauma. But very specifically with moving the gun range, if you have data, do you say that everybody within a certain range of the range should be entitled to see for a psychologist or a psychiatrist, whichever at level they are as far as their mental? So you need to say that. So as a community, your concern should be back to the gun range, folks, Evendale, City of Cincinnati, Hamilton County, that what do we as a community who have suffered all this time, what do our people get who are electing to get it? Now, it's not like reparations. We're not going to pay you just because you lived in the lower sub for umpteen years and you want. But there has to be a way. What now?
Man,
They paying people to do what?
if you got a perm, you can get paid.
People that have been getting relaxers, they're finding money and suing different companies and all that. So there should be some way, somewhere.
Oh, okay. You're talking about relaxers. Oh, well, relaxers, mesothelioma. If you took the purple pill, if you took a. I hear exactly what you're saying. I lived in Evendale next to the pond right across GE before the highway was as many lanes as it is. It was only 2 lanes. It was a flashing yellow light at St. Rita. So the question becomes, when you start talking about what do we get, you have to be very clear about what you want, why you need it, where's the data, and not some haphazard, give us something. That we have to be clear about that, and I hear exactly what you're saying. There may be some people who are, not maybe, I'm sure there are, for years, and many of those people have moved away. I know folks who lived up there before it was, and it was probably louder then than it is now because the other traffic takes up some of that noise. It muffles some of it now, but it was probably louder then. So the question becomes, what does the community put together as to what we wish would happen with those dollars that are being expended for the moving of the gun range, as well as how are the citizens being taken care of? And to be very clear about that. It's not some haphazard, oh, here's $12 million and you can divide it. It ain't gonna happen. It's not the mesothelioma, it's not the perm, the relaxer. It's not the relaxer, it's none of those things because
I was angry for a long time and didn't know. I'm probably angry because I've been in the war zone my whole life. However, it should be something that I should be able to talk to somebody. So my son should be able to go talk to somebody.
most certainly. Most certainly. Absolutely. And you've got to be able to say that, and you've got to be able to make it very succinct as to what you believe that you need. And I know that Dolores Lindsay knows all of the whole medical piece. The mental piece is there. We put dollars into mental. Why can't you have some of that? But you have to ask for it, and you have to rationalize why you should have it.
Same people that we that's removing or helping remove the gun range. Is that what you're saying? That's where we need to go to?
That's where the dollars will come. You can say something back to the state. You can even write the governor. I say you first start with your city council and say, hey, what are y'all going to do with us? What are y'all going to help us do as far as what has happened to your citizens in this community?
I just want to say something. Everything that you're sharing, and here I'm speaking from a healthcare perspective, you have an icon in Lincoln Heights that very few communities have, and that's your neighborhood health center. Lincoln Heights Neighborhood Health Center, started by Dolores Lindsay, sitting in that second seat from the front, is the icon. We have it in Springfield Township, but not like you do. We have a Lincoln Heights Health Center, but you've got a gym in your community, and it provides all around services and treats the whole person. So again, oh no, I don't mean Jim. Maybe I should have said a diamond. But you've got an asset right here, and I think that somehow there could be a blending of putting all of those resources together with the outcome being something that can address what you're bringing up. Sorry.
And I will say this about the gun range. Look, you know, when this came about, when the idea we were approached, because it was originally, it is our gun range. It's the Hamilton County Sheriff's gun range. And we had to agree, first and foremost, to share it with Cincinnati Police Department, to tear down what we have out there now that we've been building and using for decades, and allow Cincinnati to join with us. And, you know, we were on that forefront of convincing those council people in Coleraine Township to let us do that. And we were at all of those initial meetings, our gun range master and our range officers, and we answered all those questions and did those things. And we've been to every meeting. I'll tell you who I haven't seen at those meetings is a whole lot of Cincinnati police. Okay? Now, it's their gun range that needs to be moved. We put forth, I mean, if you listen to Alicia Reese the other day, you know, she called it out. They've put, what, $3 million forth, and we've put, okay, and we've put $13 million. I mean, thank you. So we've done 15. We've done a lot of work on that. Denise Driehaus as well has been on that forefront. So, you know, Cincinnati, you know, let's get some buy-in from them, I think.
Well, I want you to make sure too, when the county starts talking about how much money they put in, you look at some of that blue line stuff, that little wellness thing that they have going too, that they got out of the last, in House Bill 45, which came out of lame duck. So they had, in the last budget too, there were monies there. We're talking about Blue Line and all this other building that they're doing, and FOP owns the building. Come on, you guys, make sure you're paying attention to where the money goes and where it's coming from.
Follow the money.
No, and just from a.
What about tapping into asset forfeiture dollars from really all?
Our asset forfeiture dollars are, unfortunately, they're earmarked by certain, you know, rules, legislation, policy as to what we can spend those monies on. And yeah, and we do that. We give money to youth programs. We have a situation now where you can send us a request as far as, you know, hey, we would like some of these monies to support our programs. And as long as you're LLC and all of those things that you need to be to qualify, we have been giving out money to all of those organizations. And we do write that out of our forfeiture funds.
And they should go to the communities where it happens and they take the money from. So don't send my money to west side of town if you took it from me.
Yeah. Elder, I'm sorry, I'm not going to call out any specific code, but to your point too, and there's a couple things. So Ms. Cavitt, first thing she asked you guys is to go to your Lincoln Heights Council, right? Mm-hmm. There's been an invite to Lincoln Heights Council. There's only 2 Lincoln Heights Council members here. Who? So myself and Ms. Laverne. Oh, so there's only 2 Lincoln Heights Council members here. Ms. Childs Jeter is sick. So it was sent out to everybody. So when you talk about that forefront, this is an election year. So this is an election year. I see 7 eligible people right now that can run for Lincoln Heights Council. So if you are not happy, or if you don't understand, or if you feel like your community is not fighting for you like the way that you would want, you're more than welcome to jump at this as a Mr. Arena. And I'm sure Ms. Laverne and myself will more than welcome you. If not, allow us to go sit down somewhere sometime. But both of us. But no, I say that to say it starts with your local and your people that is closest to you, and there's no elected official more closer to you than the people that you live next to. So that's just the kind of first place to start. So who else has questions? Who not have the question yet?
I just wanted to say that we have had the same people on the council for many, many years, and we have had nobody to step up, and I'm not old enough to step up yet. There's plenty of y'all in this room. I think y'all should. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
Let me also say that, you know, I only see about 7 or 8 that I know of Lincoln Heights residents here. So you need to bring a neighbor with you, because all the conversation that we're having is going to a lot of individuals who don't live in Lincoln Heights, right? So those of you who don't live in Lincoln Heights, if you know somebody, you need to talk to them about coming out and participating for 4 years, longer than that. We are a chartered form of government. We run by commissions that are supposed to be manned by the people in Lincoln Heights. We can't get anybody to come out and get on a commission. We got an education commission. We have a planning commission. We have housing board of appeals, zoning boards of appeals. We have a recreation commission. We are a charter form of government that said you can do what you want. You have house rule. People want to sort of say council this, council that. But we're waiting for people to come down, fill out an application, and be on a commission. Not only run for council, but be on a commission. Because your responsibility as a person on a commission is to assist council, to advise council. Mrs. Lindsay is on our planning commission. We just ask you, find out what else you can do. If you don't want to serve on council, be on a commission. It doesn't take as much time. But that's a good place to start. If you're not sure if you want to be on council, start with a commission.
I just wanted to say this, and that's why I asked for this forum to go this way, the question and answer, and not for y'all to come and talk to us, because I think the problem is a lot of people don't even know how the municipal building is worked. They don't know how it's ran. So if you don't know the questions to ask, you don't ask questions because you don't want to look crazy, right? So that's why I'm here, because I know that there's some changes that need to be made within Lincoln Heights, even down on council, but I wasn't sure. I did not have all of the information, and I just don't, right? So to know that we are commission ran is good for people to know, because a lot of people my age don't know, because unfortunately I only know as much as I did because I held on to my grandma's tail. A lot of people didn't have that, right? So they don't know. So that's why if we get the information that we need, maybe we can move different, which is, I just want to make that comment, which is why I wanted to be question and answer, because you don't know if you don't get, you know what I'm trying to say.
Councilwoman Kathy? Oh, sorry.
Yes, and my papa.
Tell them, yes, ma'am. Miss Kathy?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Kathy Goodwin Williams. I served on council here for approximately 5 years. And what I will say is I encourage the young people that are in this room, or if you know somebody who's interested and they don't know, what to do or how to go about it. I didn't know either, but I got on and I put the effort in. I chaired the Economic Development Committee. And if you put together some young people who are interested, I will help you. Just like Mr. Daniels, I know that he will help you, because sometimes as we get older, some of us are reluctant to move out of the way and let young people step up and do the work. And we'll stay in the background, and when Durance calls, I will help and give what information, but it's time for you all to step up. So I'll say that, and until you're comfortable to do that, and one thing that needs to happen also, this community needs a community council.
Yes.
You need a community council, and that's all I'm gonna say about that right now, but you need a community council, okay? But my question is, with the situation that's going on with Larry Householder at the state level and First Energy, I can remember when I was on council, they were here lobbying and knocking doors, trying to get a lot of our residents to change their energy services over. And we had, I believe it was him, been doing the research trying to figure out if it was him that came to our council meeting or another representative who was adamant about the village itself signing on with them. Council said no. On many of occasions, we had a couple, or one in particular council member who kept pushing it. And then I got off council and I found out that it passed, that it eventually it passed and that the village signed on. My concern is if everything that's happening with that case is criminal, what is the fallout for communities like ours? Because if they came here, I know they went to other communities. Just want to know if there's anything that our residents who signed on for that has to be.
Here you go.
Well, we're talking state level, and of course I was a state representative at the time, and House Bill 6 was about an energy plan. Unfortunately, the corruption was the underside of it, and AEP
not AEP, I'm sorry, AEP, but First Energy out of Akron. They were the recipients. They had two, Davis-Besse, as well as another nuclear plant that they had that was in the area that would have been recipients of the dollars. Now, here, let's not confuse that householder case with House Bill 6, with probably who was coming to your neighborhood and knocking on your doors.
No, I know, because I asked.
You asked what?
What company are you from?
What were they? They were with First Energy?
Absolutely, and there's probably some other people in here who can vouch for that as well. There were several different companies at the time.
I was going to say, because First Energy, they may have been able to, but for them to get through the grid to get to you in Lincoln Heights.
Oh, they did. They did.
They would have had to come through, the grid has to come through Duke. They may have, there are other alternative services that you can sign on to. As a matter of fact, the city of Cincinnati actually has, they're an aggregate themselves where they actually bill, if you sign over, you get billed. It's actually from that city, the companies that running the city platform. It still gets billed through Duke, but it's from what the city owns.
Right.
Now, here's part of the issue. Huh? Another company that's besides it, because they own the lines. Here's the thing, and they're allowed to do that. The question becomes, though, when you make the choice, and it wasn't just First Energy that was doing it. So don't tie that.
My concern is First Energy, because that's who knocked on my door, and I know that they knocked on the doors of a lot of other residents here as well.
Okay.
Because we were getting the calls at the time asking them to stop, for us to not allow them to knock doors.
Oh, okay. So that can be something that I look at. I worked in the business for 20-something years. So I watched them close Zimmer as a nuclear facility and have it changed over to coal. I've been around through the Sierra Club and everything else that happened with that. So I was in public affairs at the time. So I know that business. And so my question was, there are lots of other outside entities, but I hope you paid attention to the news the other day when the person got the $800 bill. The reality is some of those other companies that still have to run their grid through Duke are charging you considerably more per kilowatt and per 100 cubic feet. That CCF that you see on there, that's 100 cubic feet. They charge you considerably more, and there's nothing you can do about it unless there's an agreement that you have that you can cancel at any time. The city right now, the city has people in that same situation, and people are complaining about their bills, but there's nothing they can do about it if they don't have an agreement that they can relinquish that particular plan by a certain time. So I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that, because if they were here knocking on the doors as First Energy, because remember, you get you get calls all the time from people saying, hey, or they send you this thing in the mail that says, we can give you a free something if you want to switch your electricity, unless you know how to compare the cost. And remember that Duke still gets that little customer cost. They're getting that. I don't care who you paying whatever else to. And by the way, if you don't pay your bill and they're going to cut you off, the other company will not allow Duke to make arrangements with you. So I'd love to talk to you about that. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. Sorry about that.
No, thank you. And like I said, this has been, I don't know about you guys. I have truly enjoyed this. We have one more question. Miss Joanne Sawyer, and I would be remorse. And she wouldn't like this. Remiss. Thank you. I'd be remiss if I did not give her flowers, just from an organizational standpoint, and making sure that our small nonprofit have the skill set and the tools to be able to go out and go out and talk to different corporations, different businesses, different partners. That was all under the tutelage and the mentorship of Ms. Joanne, so it's only right that you get the last question, Ms. Joanne.
Yeah. Thank you so much. As Deron said, Joanne Sawyer, GE Aviation retiree. I first and foremost want to thank every resident that came out today. Give yourselves a round of applause. The Village of Lincoln Heights is about the residents. And that's something we always have to keep in the front of our minds. It's about the residents. It's about the parents, the children, the teens. It's not about the council. It's not about the police. It's not about the state. And we're not here to defend ourselves, but do one thing that the Village of Lincoln Heights has been waiting for a long time. Listen. Regardless to what your response is, listen. That's one of the things that we learned over at GE, and I helped the Innovation Center with. People want to be heard. They just want to be heard. They want you to acknowledge, I heard what you said. May I take that back? Can we document and post somewhere a response to you? Several times tonight, these distinguished residents asked for something, and they did not get that response. They got an excuse. They got what is going to happen. They got what the process is. Very few people said, I hear you. May I get back with you? Sheriff did when she said, we can put it up on the website. When you asked for council to post it. That was indirectly declined. And it made my blood a little cold. It's about the residents. When they wanted something posted on the council website, it was derailed the response that I heard. Maybe someone heard something different. But my point. Well, hopefully that's resolved then. They'll do both. Excellent, great. Maybe I heard it incorrectly, but I just wanted to make sure it was clear for the residents. Because if I heard it that way, maybe somebody else did. I don't know. But my whole point is to thank the residents. And tonight has been, I think, a wonderful success. Working with the Innovation Center, these next generation of leaders that we have, mid-career, wonderful young people, our future. This is exciting for Lincoln Heights and for the non-Lincoln Heights residents. Many corporations have partnered with the Village of Lincoln Heights and been very, very successful with the health center. GE has done some wonderful work. Procter & Gamble, we have United Way, and I'd be remiss to not give them their thanks for their support for the Village of Lincoln Heights. So it takes a village, as we all know. And I agree with Councilwoman Ms. Laverne. Please bring somebody with you. Maybe we can have this doubled next time. Doubled. Thank you.
No. Thank you. Would anybody not? Because if not, I don't know if anybody wanted to respond to Ms. Joanne. If not, yes.
What just real quickly, I would like to say that certainly I want to address any of the concerns, all of the concerns that were brought up here, that the sheriff's office has control over and that the sheriff's office should listen to. And I want to reassure you that you have been listened to, you have been heard, and certainly the major and I tomorrow, first thing in the morning, will begin to address those things. And you should see a difference in what you asked for and what we're able to deliver. And secondly, I would like to say that some of our officers who work in Lincoln Heights need to be at these meetings because they are very embedded in obviously what goes on in Lincoln Heights. Yeah. So I promise you that that will happen when we have this next one.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's against the law to require that the
people reside in an area, because the sad part about it is they say that that's not a real job requirement. I totally disagree. I had a bill that was put in, that was introduced, and they poo-pooed it. And I'll be putting it back out, because I do believe that people take care of what they know.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could say it may not be a job requirement, but we are allowed to write their contract that they do live in the community, that you should be able to do that. So we're trying to get that passed. But no, I just want to make sure that we don't leave folks confused, because I'm like I said, I'm a little confused. I want to make sure that you are not thinking that we're here again, we're just talking heads and people didn't get their answers to their questions. And if they still have questions, as I said, you can get to any of our offices, Rep. Ingram at ohiosenate.gov, Rep.
And I think we can get. I agree with you. We can get a lot of information from your office, but as I talk to the Innovation Center and as I work in the community, most effective is when we meet people where they are. We have to bring some of that information to the community, and the community has to come to you and get some of that information. But working together, we can't always sit back and wait for the residents to come to down to the council to find out how it works. Come out to the school, start a program at the school, come to the Innovation Center. They're very open, putting some of that information, meeting people where they are. Today, it's just changed now. You know, with social media and younger people, we had to adjust a little bit to the way they are able to receive communication. We are able to receive it. So I agree with you that those processes, and we can find out a lot of information from your office, but I would suggest that you consider maybe bringing some of that information to Lincoln Heights.
I'm here.
Yep.
And I've been
Yep.
here. And if you know me, you may not have seen me in the front of the parade, but I've been in Lincoln Heights for a long time. And Dolores could vouch. Many of my friends who live down on Shoemart or whatever street can vouch. So,
but I'm not saying you personally. I'm saying the procedures. We need the procedures of how to move the residents to the place where they want to be in the Innovation Center. Help us understand what the procedures are, whether it's grants or bills or whatever. Come and help us.
Yep. You don't tell me what you need. I can't help you. So I'm coming to ask. And that's why you're here now.
Yeah.
And if push comes to shove, despite the fact that you're residents and not the council, your council represents you, and they should be able to say back to me or to the landsman's office or down to Alicia Reese or whomever else is at the county. Hey, you guys, we got skipped on our property taxes. We don't have income tax. How do we do that? How do we supplement that? But you've got to say that because
yep, and I think this is a good segue.
Where you are.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue into our next meeting, because if the residents know, come to the meeting with a list of things that you might need. See, a lot of times people have went so long, they don't even know how to ask for what they want. So, I mean, I think that's a good segue into the next time that we have these types of meetings. The next time you come down, some type of prep meeting, to what she was saying, maybe a community meeting, and say, what do you need, so you guys can go prepared. But I think this was more of a conversation today. And so it's a learning for all of us. How do we speak out more? How do we understand the state, the city, the sheriff, and they also understand us? So thank you for your time.
And I just want to say there were questions raised about voting, how do you register, and et cetera. And the information I shared was that we can have the class, the churches come down to the Board of Election, and we also are getting funding to come out more into the community. So we meet you where you are. The voting process must remain open, fair, and transparent, but you have to be able to go and vote. I mean, the one young lady said, how do you register? Well, you register, but you got to vote, and you keep voting till the day you die. And if you get disabled, you can also have resources to come where you are. If you're in the hospital and you're already registered to vote and you can't get there to the polls, the hospital provides that access for you. So that's all information readily available, not just on the website. Feel free to call. My name is Gwen McFarland. My number you can reach me at is 513-421-0495, and I'll be happy to answer any other questions. And the North Central Dems, exactly. The North Central, Lincoln Heights is a part of the North Central Dems, and you have representation on the North Central Dems, and we will be happy to come out and meet with you.
And to just get this out the way real quick, just a statement. I want to know who my officers are. I want to know who over there at Wayne waiting for me to go over 25 and mess up my insurance. I want to know. Wait. I want to know you. We need to know you. Y'all keep telling us y'all have wellness programs for y'all mental health as officers. Where do I need to be at to see where the money is going so I get to know you? What do we need to do? Absolutely.
Johnny,
not even choose. Like, where's a barbecue at so we can get together and know you? So in Lincoln Heights. In Lincoln Heights. I don't want to go to Evendale. I don't want to go wherever. In Lincoln Heights, we need to know you. Y'all need to know us as much as we need to know you. And no training can let us have a handshake like this. I need to know you. For real.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I watched the CEO do that exact same handshake.
That was love right there.
Kids graduating, walking across the stage. I guarantee you he did it as a gesture of, I know these kids. So you have to make sure that handshake is real.
Yeah. And yes, man, I need to know y'all so I know it's real.
It works both ways.
I know it's real.
It works both ways.
It's once again, like, no. Like I say, because I know it's 8:32, and like I said, this has been fantastic. Johnny, I need you to get with Major Reed before you get out of here. Go ahead, no, please, come on. No, it is. The last word. Go ahead.
I was just trying to figure out how. I don't need this. I was just trying to figure out how do we get funding for like adequate housing for Lincoln Heights. We have a whole bunch of empty land, a whole bunch of abandoned buildings, and nowhere to live.
So I'm gonna take a stab at that one,
Okay.
and then because I know we feel like we had Miss Kathy kind of carry us today a little bit on a lot of things, and Miss Gwen. But so on this end of it, when you talk about funding within your own community for housing, and then Miss Kathy is perfect to talk to you this as well too. Our CDC, so our Community Development Corporation. That's kind of like another nonprofit that works with your council, that works with your government, that really establishes, okay, we're going to go after this. We want our community to look like this and build it. Ms. Kathy did a great job of building that foundation of it, but right now we don't really have that piece that works. And then even to your side too, Ms. Kathy, and then because the relationship between the residents and our council, just like a lot of government relationships, is not one that, surprisingly enough, given our size, is not one that is very engaging. That's not one that's very participatory. When you go down to our council meetings, and it goes both ways, it doesn't look like this. It doesn't look like this when you go to our council meetings.
You don't have a full room. You got 2 chairs.
And it's
3 chairs, 4 chairs.
And there's a reason behind that too as well. So what I think Ms. Joanne was getting towards, and I hope that we could do this again, we could do it better, we could do it potentially in the garden, things of that nature, but just what we, and the reason why I ran for council, and I'm sure why we have forums like this, is I want the residents to be able to feel like they can come talk to you, that they can come ask us these questions, that they can come engage with us, that they don't see us as state senator, they don't see us as rep, they don't see us as sheriff, they see us as Charmaine, Gwen, Kathy, and Durant. And I just want to be able to have a conversation with you. And I think sometimes when we have our titles, and not us, not none of the elected officials in here, but there are elected officials that when they get that title, not only do they carry themselves like that, they move their way that you can't approach me. So I think that's what Ms. Joanne was really getting. And like I said, not necessarily our end of it. But once you talk about social media, I didn't want to touch on that part because, one, I don't control our social media on the village website. And I'm sure Ms. Laverne, when it gets to that, we can make suggestions. But we talk about these things all the time. But what we want to get done, I think from a council standpoint, and maybe I should not say it that way, but I think what some council members would like to get done is the basics right now, because we need to focus on the basics, street repair. How do we make sure that our safety contract, and once I know this is not your, but our safety contract doesn't balloon so high that our residents can't focus on anything else, right? How do we make sure our safety and our fire is in an adequate place? Those are some of the things that we're constantly working on and trying to find housing partners. So the system that we said right now is not necessarily functioning, but we need pieces like this that people can know that they can step up and find ways they can take more ownership in their own community. So I know it's 8:30 too. I hope that answers your question too, T. So I hope that answers your question on just from it didn't answer your question? From
and I hear exactly what you're saying.
Where can we find money for housing?
It's going to be through grants, yeah.
Everybody's asking the same question. People in Mount Auburn, people in those areas, despite the fact that they're building facilities, they are not affordable housing. They are not housing. And when I say affordable, I mean affordable for the whole line. You don't have to be dirt poor to need affordable housing. You need to be affordable at whatever rate you are. And so therefore, despite the fact that I may work at GE and make good money, a $350,000, $500,000 house may not be affordable for me if I have other things that I have to do. So we need housing, period. We have to look at where we're relegating people to. Some of your property can be used. The problem I have is I don't want some developer to come up here and buy it all out. And then they slowly but surely in that domain or whatever else to some of those houses that don't look so smart. Y'all know yourselves. Y'all ride up and down the street sometimes and go, what is that on their porch? Because you have got to be able to say, we're not going to ever use eminent domain, but we are going to make sure that if I build up a house next door, I'm going to figure out a way to help you face yours out better too.
Not out tax you.
Because that's what we're doing to people. I'm building a house next door, and then I run you out of yours because you can't afford your taxes anymore. And we're doing that all over the country, but it's bad in Hamilton County.
There's bad on there's no houses out here.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
Nah.
I lived in one and I had to stay there because there's nowhere else to move to because of there's no opportunities for better housing out here. Unless I go to where when we work on it,
Nah, that's good. Nah.
there's no.
And that's what I say, T, I wanted to talk with you and Captain. No. Thank you, everybody. No, thank you. So we don't have like a proper send-off or like make sure you get some food and all that type of stuff. But yeah, thank you guys. You guys can still mingle and everything else like that. But thank you, everybody, for coming.
You said it was loaded. Where he say?
Okay, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, thank you very much for your comments. It's real important. And that was like around a Halloween thing. Is that what you're saying?
trunk or treat, so there was cars parked on the street. Yeah, I had already told them 8 o'clock.
Appreciate everybody. Have a great night.
I made sure you be good. Yes.
I have 4 daughters before. My biggest fear is
That's what I'm saying. Thank
I told him, I said, y'all should have came and got some candy apples and candy apples. Y'all should have came and still have the kids. Perfect time.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. Yeah.
And I watched the other people.
Personal summer, huh? I hear you. Do I need help cleaning up? Yes. Who? Who? Go ask them who. Miss Kathy? Miss Kathy?
The bag.
Oh, I gotta go outside. This one is bad, baby.
Yeah, John. No, John's 19, but I love John. John. That's someone else.
No, the other, they had on the jacket.
I'm about to run for council.
Okay. Sure, if you want the young guys, yeah.
Please go back to school tomorrow.
That's my number. I'm like, all y'all I'm signing the whole neighborhood up and get everybody in the same city.
Lil Johnny on the beat.
Wiki. Imani just came up. Now she trying to picky. Oh, I gotta go. For real, where were you at? I'm sure you have. Where were you at?
Hey, I'll pick right on up what you put down, okay?
We could have told you. I could have left you in this room. There was like the food time there. Everybody was watching it on the TV, and then we had it on in this room as well. But I'm glad you could see. Awesome. It was slowly heating up throughout the whole time, but when we got to the police, it got hot, and then when we got to the local level, instead we can start getting away from the state, county, and we got rid of the sheriffs. And we dropped the local. Ooh, we got 10. Oh, that was good. The food was good. Are you hungry? This was in the 80s. They pushed it there. This was funny. Hey, Johnny! Where my boy Johnny? Come back, yo, man. Manny! Manny! Now, that's a whole line. It's a whole high school, but it's accredited. I'm researching it. It's in Georgia. Our members of the house, but me, I'm before I left there, I was trying to get them introduced to that so they know what this money and it's not. We meet the second Wednesday of every month. We really need some black men. Hey, yeah, I saw you, but I don't know. Okay, so I'm gonna call you when I get home. All right. So,
Hey, you know we just said donations.
And I
good. Oh my God.
I don't have my cards. Well, I was just ordering more. I don't have my cards. But I just so I started off. I don't know.
Yeah, we just ain't never had somebody go around to the level of government.
She's a doctor, but she's here, and so she has her consulting form, and I do all kind of things with her, and we, contracts and stuff, and so I'll be at the Cincinnati Chamber doing leadership training. And this is where I'm do you understand what I'm saying? It's for Cincinnati Chambers. It's not, I've never worked with the African American Chambers, but it's called Cincinnati Chambers. And so what happens is large businesses, they send their women of color for emotional intelligence and stuff like that. And I'm facilitating that I just ordered something. I'm happy that Ron's told me about this. Took some notes.
And so what is your degree in?
Get out of here. I know people are like,
wonderful. I mean, but it's wonderful.
Well, and that's another part of my
because see, that's a story to be told.
It's a story to be told that I do so much leadership training, and I impact so many people, and I have this business where it's working for me.
Did you start out with Chick-fil-A doing this, or somewhere else?
I started out. Well, I've done a lot of things, but I started out doing marketing for the 18 corporate McDonald's in Cincinnati and Kentucky, and then for culture purposes, I went in here. I'll tear a piece of paper out here. Well, actually, this is bootleg because I really do not know.
That's all right. You didn't know.
I didn't know. So no.
Well, you know what? Put it in your phone. Come on, y'all young people now. Y'all know more about technology. I never think about it. Daughter said, "Mama, take a picture." I'm like, yeah, that's right.
You want to put it out here? So I don't have a degree, and I'm not embarrassed about it.
Don't worry about
it. It's interesting because when I do the leadership training for the chamber, and I tell myself, but I feel like I've been addicted to doing that. Okay, that's what I have. So no. There's in high school, and then I did 2 years in UT. I came out when I had my daughter, and my daughter is 22, and my daughter went to college when she was 15. She's running through classes, okay, and she's doing a phenomenal job. What is she doing? She's teaching right now regeneration. She has her own business. Now she was supposed to go to the Middle East because her major is in Arabic and international. She was okay.
They had both my kids, one of them was in Abu Dhabi and the other was in Kuwait. And I'm like, that didn't really.
Yes.
My one daughter, what did you do?
98.
I said, all of y'all better call my kids.
Jamila. And Shaw. No.
Oh, you talking about Jamila Battle?
Oh, I thought it was a Jamila and a Jamal.
Yes.
That's
well, there's a Jamila and there's Jamal Battle.
Oh, okay. So that's not your.
No, my child is Jamila Mitchell and Nashuma Mitchell.
Nashuma brown skin tall.
He did it for a minute. We live in Williams.
Okay, yes.
Across the street. Yes. But she was over there for a year, Kuwait teaching. Ayana was there for 6 years. But anyway, I'm gonna get it back so I didn't finish.
So I mean, even with my daughter, like she's doing a whole bunch of stuff with the charter school. She's an intervention specialist.
Okay.
And so when I do the read alouds and book launch, she'll come talk about literacy and the impact of COVID and
And now she don't do anything with cosmetics, does she? It must be one of your little cousins or somebody. I met her mixing at the Wyoming something.
That's my daughter. She owns the Black Market brand. Yes, that's my daughter. She owns that business. That is so funny.